Hello and welcome back. And well, this one is easy for us because we've got our next guest here in the studio with us, and that makes a big difference. So communication very easy, and it's also nice to be dealing on a person-to-person basis. So I'm going to welcome Debbi Evans, and she spoke for the first time at AV. When was that? Back in May. Good grief, it seems a long time ago. She's come back with a new talk, new subject areas, and this lady has got the most fantastic research. She's going to be talking about 2020 vision in plain sight in this particular talk. And of course, she got the opportunity to ask questions. So send those emails in. I will have to do a little bit of work because, of course, the iPads decided to go low on battery, but we'll catch up in just a second. But I'd like you to welcome Debbi Evans. Hello, Debbi.
Hello, thank you, Brian.
My pleasure. So the camera is yours, the audience is yours.
Okay.
Go for it.
Thank you. Thank you. Well, thank you, and welcome to everybody. And big thank you to Ian. A big shout out. Hello, Ian, and thank you for having trust in me, and to Brian and Matthew. And I'm only a beginner amongst all these very polished speakers who have been researching all of this for absolutely years. So I might need a bit of their help. So go easy on me because I'm only a newbie. What I want to do is just throw some things out to show you. I'm a mum, I'm a granny, and I'm a trained nurse. And things aren't feeling right. They're not looking right. And I'm suspicious. And so I've been looking at things around me. I'm trained to observe. So I've been observing some things. And I'm going to throw some things out quite quickly to you. Some of the slides we'll go to very quickly, but you'll be able to go back to them and have a look at them. But some of the slides will give you questions. And I hope you can maybe answer my question, or maybe you can challenge me and tell me where I've gone wrong. So we're going to whiz through a whistle-stop tour and see where we go. So hidden in plain sight. What actually is hidden in plain sight? Well, it looks like the world is pretty much closed. But strangely on this world, we can't see Antarctica. I'm just throwing that out there for a little bit later on in the presentation. And it seems that China's doing very well. So the planet's not entirely closed. So this presentation is my truth, my research, my dots. I always say to everybody, you have to follow your own dots and question everything. Don't take my word for it. Don't take anybody's word for it. If we throw something out to you that you don't feel right with, then please go and look it up yourself, because your truth is what matters. So as the Buddha said, believe nothing, no matter where you read it, or who said it, no matter if have said it, unless it agrees with your own reason and your own common sense. So if it feels right for you, then it probably is right. And a conspiracy is only a conspiracy when it isn't true. I've been called a tin hat conspiracy theorist. I've been called a nutter. I've been called a fearmonger. I'm not a fearmonger. I'm a reality. Well, I'm in reality. You know, it's like looking at what's around you, looking at the facts, looking at the evidence. And actually, if we're all going to listen to what the governments say and take their line, then who's to know what's the truth? I personally don't, so I've been looking around. So back in Nazi Germany, Goebbels and I believe Hitler both said the bigger the lie, the more it will be believed. Wow. Because it seems that maybe we're looking at one huge lie right now, and people are believing it. A lot of people are believing it. But as a mum and a granny and watching the news to see what we're being fed mainly, I'm worried. And no one does more research than a worried mum for her kids. So the clues are all out there if we look for them. And I'm sure most of you will have heard of these documents. Microsoft bought out ID 2020, very aptly titled. And then the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation bought out Event 201, which is a tabletop pandemic exercise, if you like. What would happen if this and that happened? And interestingly, Event 201 took place in October last year. So October last year, and then we see Wuhan in December. It seems pretty close to me. Also, if you haven't already looked at, please do go and look, because I'm literally throwing you out dots and little places for you to go and check out the facts for yourself. So the Rockefeller lockstep scenario, again, another tabletop exercise, or what they call it, a tabletop exercise on what would happen. How would the planet react if there was a pandemic? What kind of pandemic would it be? How would it affect us? And how would we behave? So have a look at Rockefeller lockstep scenario. I won't go into it all now. I could literally do a presentation on every single slide, but I'm trying to scoot through and give you as much as I possibly can. So apologies if it's too quick for you. The last paper there is a paper that I found purely by chance, SPA's Pandemic 2025 to 2028. And that was brought out by the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health. And we see Johns Hopkins' name in an awful lot of documents, along with Imperial College and Oxford. So this SPA's pandemic was actually planned for 2025. So according to the World Economic Forum, Klaus Schwab, because of COVID, we have had to accelerate the Great Global Reset. So was the SPA's pandemic actually what was planned? But then they kind of binned it and went early. But please have a look. I don't think it's a coincidence. Nightingale hospitals. Well, that's interesting. The Nightingale hospitals that were opened and built for so many people that didn't need them, and now they've been closed, or have they? Are they going to be used for detention centres, perhaps, or quarantine facilities? Are we going to be moved to those for our own safety if they suspect us to be contaminated? And actually, if you look on the government website, which this is the government website, Properties for Sale, you'll see that there's an awful lot of properties that maybe we shouldn't be selling, like hospitals. The next slide will show just a few. There are 245 properties for sale that the government are selling. One of them includes Moorfields Hospital, and one of them includes quite a lot of land on Pond Street at the Royal Free Hospital, which is where I trained. So I was pretty shocked when I saw that. And then we've got health centres, medical centres, ambulance stations, all up for sale. Why? Why are they all up for sale? That's a question that you're building Nightingales, but you're selling hospitals. So do go and check out the government website. And when you go onto the site, it tells you to put postcodes in for what you're looking for. Don't bother putting anything in. Just go to buy properties and hit the search button, and it'll take you to this list of all these properties for sale. And maybe you could ask yourself, is your hospital for sale? Is your medical centre for sale? Perhaps have a look and check out. Now, if anybody can answer this question, I'd be really, really grateful. I could, again, do a whole presentation on the vaccine, the dangers of the vaccine, the morals of the vaccine, the ethics of the vaccine. But I'm really struggling as a trained nurse when we don't have a vaccine for HIV, that now, all of a sudden, we need a vaccine for something that over 99% of the population make an unremarkable recovery from, which is fantastic. Which you think, we need to celebrate this because everybody's getting better. And yes, they might be poorly for a few weeks or a few months afterwards. But in my world, that was called post-viral fatigue. So that's to be expected. So if anybody out there can actually answer my question of why we would need a vaccine for something that 99% of people recover from, hallelujah, I'm very, very happy about that, then I'd be really grateful. Especially as the pharmaceutical companies are exempt from liability. So if anything goes wrong, who do you ask? Who have you got a call against? Who have you got a claim against? Seemingly nobody. AstraZeneca, for sure, not. So I emailed Boots CEO because they're running out these rapid testings, and now they say they're going to be carrying out the vaccinations. So I asked them if it was safe. I asked them if they knew what was going in it, and I asked about the testing. And they came back to me and said that they didn't know anything because it was down to the government, because the government were overseeing this. And as you can see there, it says a government and supervised service. COVID-19 is a government and government-led and supervised service. So I suggest you contact the Department of Health and Social Care. Well, that's strange because I used to be an advocate on the Autism Programme Board based at the Department of Health at Richmond House in London, but I can't get a response from them. So maybe they've closed down and there's nobody there either. So after I'd spoken to the chief pharmacist, Mark Donovan, who still can't answer my questions. I've had another email since. He still can't answer my questions. I emailed my GP. So I said to my GP, do you know what's going on? And he didn't, because he's been so busy, he hasn't put in the research that many of us have done. So I asked him what was going to be in the vaccine, and he didn't know. I asked him how he was going to feel if there was a mandatory vaccine. He said there was no mandatory vaccine, but that if I had any queries or any worries, I was to contact the government or track and trace, because it was a separate entity to my GP surgery. So it technically meant that I couldn't go into my GP surgery and say I wanted a test, not that I would, but if I did, it wouldn't be the GP that gives me the test. I would be then routed off to a government department, to Serco, to have my test. And I thought it was interesting at the end of his letter where he said that he appreciated that many people were suffering with mental health problems. I've never known in my lifetime a mental health practitioner being installed permanently in a GP surgery. But clearly from the end of the letter, you can see that that's exactly what they're thinking of doing, which leads me to believe that the rate of mental health illness is accelerating hugely. So as a regular sewer flood victim, which is what I was talking on AV11 about all along, I asked South West Water, because at the end of the day, COVID is in sewage and they're tracking sewage, and UK Column have done some fantastic work and research on seeing what is actually happening. And bearing in mind I get sewage delivered to my door more regularly than Tesco's, I decided to ask South West Water, because you can't have the government telling you to stay at home and it's safe, and then South West Water delivering raw COVID-infected sewage at my door. But as you can see from their reply, and I do have the photograph, when you read through the email, I do have the photographs of the staff without PPE, but I won't let them have it. I've told everybody else, the council, etc. And they don't seem to think that I'm at risk and that there's no risk between fecal and oral contamination. Absolutely not. And I'm absolutely fine. So I needn't worry. But I do my homework and I look at the evidence. And I had to reply to them with this paper, which is clearly showing that COVID-19 is also spread by fecal-oral route. And I'm going to have to go in a little bit closer to the screen because I can't read what I've actually ringed. And that would just explain the paper on the left there. So South West Water, somebody's wrong, but it's not me. The vaccine is, as I say, a whole new presentation on itself. If you look at the vaccine, there are certain things going into it, like hydrogel, luciferase, and nanodust, and that's a presentation on its own. Hydrogel and luciferase have been used for quite a long time in vaccines. Hydrogel is a medium with which they can put anything else into it, and that's the medium that it will carry it. And luciferase is a bioluminescence, so a bit like a firefly or a glowworm. And so when you've had the vaccine, you will be able to be seen by special lights, ultraviolet lights, or scanned or droned or whatever, to know that you are a compliant citizen and that you've had the vaccine. This was a screenshot I took from Peston on the 21st of October, ITV. And it looks actually, as if you look at all the pillars, that the majority of the population have got serious reservations about the vaccine, and I completely understand why. So what I would say to you, without going into a great big presentation just on vaccinations, is maybe do some research into transhumanism 2.0. It's a whole new subject, and for that I would recommend Dr. Carrie Majed. Now, she's been censored and taken off YouTube, but she's got some most incredible videos about transhumanism, about Moderna, about the likely implications that this could have and the dangers that this could have. So please be informed before you take any vaccine. And as my GP said, you know, unfortunately what they do is they vaccinate you and then they give you the leaflet. Well, that's not good enough. You need to have the leaflet before you take the vaccine. So please make sure that you have got an informed choice. And from that slide, you can clearly see the evolution of man, and the transhumanism 2.0 is going to turn us into robots by using nanodust, which will penetrate the DNA of the cell, and then the cell will replicate, and you will be forever changed, and you can't go back. Once you've had it, that's it. You cannot go back. So please do some more research into transhumanism, and do have a look at Dr. Carrie Majed's videos on BitChute. People forget that in 2017 and 2018, the UK had 50,000 excess flu deaths. And that was because of a dodgy flu vaccine that the government gave out. But did we hear about that? Did we put masks on? Did we social distance? Did we close the planet down for that? No, we didn't. So actually, the 50,000 excess deaths in 2017, 2018 are more than the death rate now in this country for COVID. They're pretty much about the same now. But we didn't mask up then, and we didn't social distance then, and we didn't even know it had happened. Ooh, pressing the clicker. There we go. Here's a video, please watch.
Child aged 2 or 3, protect them and others with a free flu vaccine. It's just a quick nasal spray.
So that was something that I caught off the TV. I was actually building this presentation and I just heard it, and I couldn't find it online, so I had to film it on my phone, which is why the quality is really poor. But it's talking about the flu vaccine, and it's talking about vaccinating children as young as 2 and 3, 2 years old and 3 years old. Now, not last year, because I'm not an anti-vaxxer, you know, I'm really not an anti-vaxxer, and I've queued up for my flu jab every year. So I admit I have had the flu jab. This year, no. And normally, of a winter, you have to ask the doctor to have a flu jab, and you get an appointment, and you queue up with a lot of other people, but you have to be eligible for the flu vaccine. Since when were we vaccinating children at the age of 2 and 3 with a flu vaccine? So I just leave that with you. Would you be happy for your children to have a flu vaccine, or indeed the new COVID vaccine, knowing what you might find out or knowing what you know now? The nasal vaccination is often what they're using with children. Now, I'm a trained ENT nurse, and I was a ward sister for quite a while in an ENT theatre. And the nasal mucosa is a brilliant medium, brilliant, because it's lovely and absorbent, and it's easy. No needles to be scared of, it's just a little nasal puffer. But actually, anything that goes up the nose is going fairly close to the brain. And we'll come on to the brain a little bit later, but all I would say to everybody looking out there is, if you've got children, or if you're tempted to have the nasal puff, then please do some further research and check it out, and maybe speak to school, because I do know that some people have had problems with school wanting to vaccinate or wanting to test children without their parents being there. So please just be alert to that, because we are living in strange days. And to be fair, it was the AV11 conference that I did last time that woke me up with a bang. Before that, I'd bought into it. I was hand sanitizing. I was masking. I was really worried. I was telling my son not to go out. And it was only when my son, David, so if you're watching, David, thank you, because he started saying to me, Mum, this isn't adding up. And then I did the AV11 conference, and then boom, I woke up big time. So please do your research. If you're going to actually have an invasive procedure like a nasopharyngeal swab, or like a vaccination or an injection, please do your research first so that you can make an informed choice. Statistics for suicide. A lot of the other speakers have spoken about mental health, and I'm very relieved to see that they have. So this is something that's not in plain sight at all. The Office for National Statistics haven't brought out any suicide figures for this year at all. However, I caught a tweet, thank you to Pip, my friend, who's also massive researcher. I couldn't have done any of this without her. She sent me a tweet the other day from the London Ambulance Service to say that suicides have risen from 15 per day 5 years ago to 37, and that's suicide calls, so either suicide attempts or suicides. And the effects on this is not just devastating for the families that are left behind, but also the paramedics that have to go to the scene. So this is extremely worrying, and the reason that they're not releasing the figures must be seen as suspicious. My son, David, he lost 2 of his friends within 3 days of each other. And it was the week that they'd reported that 4 people had died with COVID, not of COVID, had died with COVID in the whole of the Southwest. And the same week as though 4 people had died in the whole of the Southwest, my son lost 2 25-year-olds, friends, to suicide in his local area. But they weren't remembered. And we remember them. We will all remember them. But so many of these youngsters and other people, older people, aren't being remembered. And please can we remember too that 500 people a day in this country die of cancer. And about 197, although don't quote me on that figure, but I think it's about 190, 197 die of heart attacks. So, you know, in the bigger picture, we're losing a lot of people and we're not even realising. Pandemic, pandemonium, pansexual, panopticon. Panopticon, the prison with the watchtower in the middle, where the guards can see the prisoners, but the prisoners can't see the guards. Pantomime. What is Westminster at the moment? It just seems to be theatre, acting, pantomime. Pan-Europa. There's Pan-Europa, there's Pan-Commonwealth. Pan is a very interesting prefix. And of course, you've got panic attack, which is what all of this together combined does. So keep an eye out for the prefix pan. Talking of pan, and I do apologise. Well, no, I don't apologise actually for the picture. And I agree, it's not pleasant, but it's on Wikipedia. So any child can access that picture that depicts Pan the god. And the shot to the right is just something in Cornwall that they use as an emergency call, pan, 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 or pan, pan, pan. So pan is used to signify a major event, chaos, collapse, calamity. And of course, Pan is the god of shepherds and sheep and nature, with a bit of lust thrown in as well. So you can make of that whatever you want, but I think it's valid to recognise that pandemic, pandemonium, pantomime, it's all fitting into one picture. Prince Philip made this remark when speaking to the German news agency Deutsche Presseagentur in 1988. In the event that I'm reincarnated, I would like to return as a deadly virus to contribute something to solving overpopulation. I don't think I need to say much more, so we'll shoot on to the next slide. Because this is Bill Gates' statement. We need to develop a digital certificate that shows who has received all the vaccinations. Only those with all the required vaccinations may travel, visit churches, participate in sports and music events, get a job, etc. COVID, Certificate of Vaccination ID. Is that what COVID really stands for? Certificate of Vaccine ID. So that's what Bill Gates says. And then Stanley Johnson, our own Prime Minister's father, in case some of you didn't realise, he has actually written a book, this really convoluted plot of biological warfare, which basically ends up with, if you are a scientist and believe you've identified the source of a potential epidemic that could wipe out the entire population, what would you do? And strangely enough, he mentions green monkeys, and I trained at the Royal Free Hospital in London. And one of our secondments back then was to an infectious disease hospital within our group called Coppitt's Wood Infectious Disease Hospital. And it was a time when green monkey disease and Lassa fever was around. So I know a little bit about nursing people with viruses. And it's if they've got a virus, if they're sick, then absolutely they need to be probably as far away as possible from healthy people. But We seem to be locking up the healthy and ignoring the sick. So that's where the difference is. But I just thought you might find that reference to Stanley Johnson a little intriguing. Might even like to read the book. I haven't, but I'm sure somebody will. And then Klaus Schwab, we've heard a lot about him from the other speakers. The World Economic Forum, the Great Global Reset, or the Fourth Industrial Revolution. People say, oh, it's the New World Order, and everybody goes, oh, don't talk about the New World Order. No, they're not calling it the New World Order. They're calling it the Great Global Reset, or the Fourth Industrial Revolution. And I thought this was quite worrying from Klaus Schwab. He said a lot of worrying things. But to say in the New World, it is not the big fish which eats the small fish. It is the fast fish which eats the slow fish. And then he's become an expert on neuroscience. And I'll just have to step forward a little bit to be able to read the screen because I can't read it without my glasses. The Fourth Industrial Revolution may indeed have the potential to robotize humanity and thus to deprive us of our heart and soul. But as a compliment, is there a compliment if they're depriving you of your heart and soul? But as a compliment to the lost parts of human nature, creativity, empathy, stewardship, it can also lift humanity into a new collective and moral consciousness based in a shared sense of destiny. Now, consciousness, I'm quite happy as I am, thank you. I do not need to be altered, to be changed, to be roboticized. And he's actually admitted it there. So this is the agenda. It's to get into our consciousness, to steal our souls. And I do really believe that politicians are trying to steal our sanity and our minds to enable scientists to steal our souls. Well, mine's not negotiable, and I'm sure yours aren't either. So mine's not for sale. And why is this in the Vatican? This is a pine cone hidden in plain sight, right in the middle of the Vatican. So what does that represent? Here's a clue, the pineal gland. It resembles a pine cone, and there's very little known about the pineal gland. Neuroscience is still trying to catch up on that, but most people agree that it is the window to our souls, and it is prone to calcification. We don't want it calcified. We want our pineal glands to be beautiful because that's our soul, that's where our emotions are, that's where our memories are as well, near to our limbic system. And if you just keep an eye on that picture there of the skull, so you can see the little area that's lit up is the pineal gland, which will become relevant in a moment. But just bear that in mind, that it's kind of forehead in the centre of the brain. As a trained ENT nurse, I approach nasopharyngeal swabbing very cautiously. And to be honest with you, it's been a long time since I've been in clinical practice, but I wouldn't feel comfortable doing a nasopharyngeal swab on anybody, because it's a very, very long swab and it's very intrusive and invasive, and it has to go up into the nasopharynx cavity. Well, that's very close to the brain and also not too far from the pineal gland. And you don't know what you're putting into your nasopharynx with that swab. You've got no clue. You're swabbing yourself and you're giving whoever your data and your DNA, but what are you actually putting into your nose? So personally, as an ENT nurse, I would not feel comfortable having a nasopharyngeal swab unless it was by somebody trained with a very good reason. The PCR test, this test, they keep going on about this test. The test, you've got to go and have a test. You must have this test. Why? Why are we testing healthy people and ignoring the sick? And are these tests reliable? The PCR test is not reliable. It will only give a reading of a positive result when it detects virus, not active virus. It will only detect virus. So whether it's active, infectious, or inactive, non-infectious, is immaterial. Now you can shed most viruses, and coronavirus they think can shed for up to 6 months. So if you're feeling a bit grotty and you've been in bed for a couple of days and they've tested you positive, that's probably active virus. But then 3 months down the line, when they test you again and they still say you're positive and you feel fine, what they're testing for is virus, not active infectious virus. So now they're bringing out this LAMP testing, which they're going to roll out with members of the NHS first, frontline staff. But it's a novel test. It's new. So no one knows quite what it's about. But they're going to use it on our frontline staff, which I'm a little bit worried about. On the document that you're looking at on the left, you'll see right at the bottom where it says that these tests really are not effective. They are showing too many false positives, and it's just not effective or reliable. So my question is that if these tests aren't reliable, why are we having them done? And the LAMP testing, this novel test, if it's not been tested really well, which it hasn't because we haven't had time for, then why are we rolling it out on our frontline staff? I don't know the answer to that question. Who are performing these procedures on you? It seems to be a private company, Serco. And it was interesting because as I was coming down to the studio today, I met a lady on the train, like you do, one of these conversations on the train. And I think we were meant to meet because she was wavering. She knows something's not right, but she didn't know what. And she told me that she'd been for a test and that she'd had the swab. She was given the swab and she was told to swab the back of her throat and then use the same swab and stick it up her nose and swab her nose and then to put it into a medium container. And I looked and she said, that can't be healthy, can it? Swabbing the back of my nose and then sticking it in my nose, swabbing the back of my throat and then sticking it in my nose. And I said, no, because normally you would use 2 swabs. You would use a throat swab and a nasopharyngeal swab. You wouldn't use 1 swab for 2 areas. So on this picture, you can see actually that the person, and I don't know if she's a trained nurse, if she's an HCA, if she's a call handler, I don't know who she is, but she works for Serco, but she's going down somebody's throat. So is she going to take a throat swab and then stick it up the nose? Because that seems to be how it works. And if I'm wrong, please somebody correct me, but that's what she told me this morning on the train platform. And since when did anybody voluntarily line up and allow unqualified people to point a gun at your head? I wouldn't even let my children have water pistols. I'm very anti-guns, full stop. But the thought of lining up to have a gun put to your head, to me, is morally and ethically wrong. And do we know what's coming out of these thermometer temperature guns? Is it UV? Is it infrared? Or is it something else? Are they effective? Are they reliable? Who's using them? Because the other day I walked past a local hairdresser and the hairdresser was standing at the door firing these guns at people going in for appointments. I was literally gobsmacked because to me, for a child to line up and have a gun to put to their head, it's just not right. So old school versus new school. As a trained state registered nurse, I was taught rule 1, God gave us airways. Why? To breathe. And what did you do with those airways? As a theatre nurse and as a recovery nurse, maintain clear airways all the time. It was a mantra. You have to maintain clear airways. So I was a little worried and very concerned, actually, when I saw the St John Ambulance protocol for CPR, where if you read down it, it says call for an ambulance, use a towel or a piece of clothing and lay it over the mouth and nose. Do not do mouth to mouth. I was completely, every time I read it, it's like you're going to see somebody who's having a cardiac arrest and you're going to shove a towel over their face and suffocate them. But that's what St John's Ambulance are teaching. And I'm absolutely horrified because it completely goes against the grain of what I was taught as a nurse back in the mid-70s when nursing was nursing. So that's not adding up to me either. So who's really requiring the mask? Is it them or is it us? Because we're all being told to mask up. And when these politicians and scientists stand at the podium, they don't have a mask on because they're scripted. But as soon as they get caught outside or they're caught off guard, they've got a mask on. So we can't see their expression. We can't see what they're saying, what they're thinking, who they are. We don't know because they're masking themselves. So who are the masks for? Are they for us or are they for them? This is a reasonable question, I think. If anybody can answer it, if masks work, why are businesses closed? If they don't work, why are we forced to wear masks? And if masks and social distancing work, then why are we locked down? And in those areas that are locked down and have been locked down for a long time, like Bolton, why are the numbers still going up? Because obviously the lockdown's not working.
Well, obviously, I think we all
Can we
want to
go back a
send our
slide
best
on that,
wishes to the
Matthew, at all?
President
Because
and,
I should have
First
known.
Lady.
I'm going left. And I'm going to click again because this is a little piece that I found. And just listen very carefully to a few of the words that he says. It's only about 10 seconds long, so listen carefully.
Well, obviously, I think we all want to send our best wishes to the President and the First Lady, and I've done that this morning, as you can imagine. And I'm sure that they'll both stage a very strong recovery.
Did you hear that? They're going to stage their recovery. So is this all a stage? Was Boris's episode staged? Clearly, I'm not sure if he meant to say it or not, but it came out and staged. NHS. Oh, I need my little friend. Brian, could you pass me my little friend? Thank you very much. I've bought something to show you that my mother bought me. And since I've been down loads of rabbit holes, she wanted to remind me of what I used to look like when I was a Barts nurse. So it's a rabbit dressed up, as you can see, in a nurse's uniform. And I put my badges on as well. And this was what nursing was to me. This is what people came into our hospital and saw. We were kind, we held hands, we shouldn't sit on beds, but we did sit on beds. And flowers were filling the ward. And sometimes if somebody was struggling to eat, the doctor would prescribe a little bit of sherry before their evening meal to get their appetite going. And we'd send them to convalescence in Eastbourne if they needed a bit of a break before they went back home, if they'd been in hospital for a long time. So that was my NHS. That was the NHS that I was trained in. I wasn't trained to look like an astronaut. I wasn't trained to be scary. I was trained to hold hands. That's what I was trained for. So I just want to remind everybody that we nurses still like to remember those days, that we're not astronauts. Thank you. The new NHS logo is significant because NHS has now turned into NHSX. So what does the X mean for us? I was a bit shocked when I saw it too, and I was especially interested because it was regarding operating theatres and smart patients, because that's what we're looking at now, a smart NHS, smart patients, smart beds, smart operating theatres, smart surgery. So, and if you want to go back through the presentation at another time and just look at that video again, you'll see that the comments towards the end were all NHS managers or NHS administrators. So that is what our NHS has turned into. It's become a smart NHS, or is it a COVID health service? I'm not quite sure, but it's certainly not the NHS I trained in. So who has access to your data on NHSX, where data is being harvested? And you might like to meet this lady, Nicole Junkerman. I'll let you read the slide yourself, but Israeli intelligence, Jeffrey Epstein's Lolita Express, Panama Papers, Sepp Blatter. Was she the mystery woman that visited Epstein before he committed suicide? But what we do know is that she's now working alongside Matt Hancock on his technology vision within the NHS Health Tech Advisory Board. So who has got your data? There's a company called Palantir you might like to research. Palantir seem to connect the NHS to the Pentagon, but that's another presentation. But it does open the question of who has got access to your data and what are they doing with it? Is this a conflict of interest? So when every time you see a Downing Street presentation, you normally see Sir Patrick Vallance and Professor Chris Whitty. I have to be really careful because I struggle to say their names because I have nicknames for them. So if I mess up, I apologise. But it's interesting to see that Sir Patrick Vallance has £600,000 worth of shares in pharmacy and pharmaceuticals and vaccines, and Chris Whitty, although he didn't receive personally in his pocket £40 million, he received £40 million from the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation for research into vaccines and all sorts of things in the past, Ebola, malaria. And really, that says it all, doesn't it? I mean, if you had a solicitor that was best friends with your ex-husband, you wouldn't use him for your divorce, would you? It would be a conflict of interest. So why are we using scientists that obviously have a lot to lose if this all goes wrong in their eyes? Because he's going to stand to make a lot of money, and so is Chris Whitty, standing to make a lot of money in pharmaceutical. Is that fair on us? Is that in our best interests? My son, David, and if you're watching, thank you for your contribution, because he's a musician, he's a professional musician, he's a virtuoso guitarist. But Rishi Sunak has suggested that he bins all of his years. I mean, they were touring with a band abroad, in China, America. They were getting quite big. But apparently now he's got to give all of that up and retrain. Maybe retrain for the job on the right-hand side of the paper, which is a failing test centre. £2,000 a day. So it's nice money if you can get it. £2,000 a day, they'll pay somebody to turn around a track and trace centre that's going wrong. And my son's got to lose his job. And art and theatre, musicians, poets, everybody in creative arts. It's collapsed, and what do we need to keep us happy? Music for me is my soul food. Theatre, art, cinema, happiness, smiling. Where's it gone? UK ARPA. I'm going to go into this really, really quickly because Dominic Cummings has masterminded this, but he's put it out all on his blog. So please do go and read his blog because he talks about the game theory, he talks about ARPA, he talks about eugenics. It's all out there, these very long, convoluted blogs, but it is out there. ARPA is the new UK research funding agency, science, making the UK post-Brexit a science global superpower. Science? Lab? So does that mean we're the lab rats? Because it certainly seems to me as though perhaps in the UK post-Brexit, we're going to be the lab rats for the global superpower that we are in science. So I'd urge you to look a little bit closer into ARPA. And in America, they have the equivalent of DARPA, but that's artificial intelligence within the military. So that's a slightly different subject, but ARPA and DARPA do go together. So please do further research those.
Time is running out.
Businesses that deal with Europe
will have to follow new rules from the 1st of January 2021.
if it crosses borders,
Definite actions we need to take already.
no matter what.
New rules from 1st of January.
I'll give you a second to jot that down. 1st of Jan.
On Get Ready can take longer than you think.
So get on it now at gov.uk/transition.
Got it? Good.
Time is running out, and the government are putting it out there blatantly in plain sight. It quite clearly said on that advert there, times are changing, the rules are changing, the regulations are changing. January the 1st, 2021, all change. And it really will be all change. We're in lockdown now until the beginning of December. I don't know whether we'll come out of lockdown in December or maybe just be allowed a little bit of Christmas shopping. Christmas, what's that? I don't know. But from January 2021, things are going to change and it's all out there. Post-Brexit, this is interesting. This is interesting because post-Brexit, we always thought that we would either be on our own doing world trade deals with everybody else, or that we'd maybe align a little bit with the USA because we wanted a trade deal with the USA. But it seems that actually that may not be happening, and the third path might have already happened, which is going back actually to listening to other presenters talking about Five Eyes, the Five Eyes intelligence, which was, I think Paul spoke about it earlier, didn't he? Five Eyes. And Five Eyes is this UK, USA, Canada, New Zealand and Australia intelligence. Five Eyes. So we'd all clubbed together and it was the intelligence. But we seem to have binned the USA all of a sudden. And we've now started a new Commonwealth called CANZUK. So it's a campaign for stronger ties between Canada, New Zealand, Australia and the UK. And if you look at the stats, that's a lot of people. That's an awful lot of people. So what's going on here? Are we looking for world dominance with our new Commonwealth? So are China involved? Maybe. I'm just putting a couple of shots because if you go to CANZUK online, they've got a huge website and you can just navigate your way all around it. And those are just a couple of slides for them. They talk about Scotland. It's going to be great for Scotland. They talk about trade. They talk about where the UK will figure in all of this. So it seems to be almost a done deal. And it's strange that the Queen and Prince Philip and everybody and Prince Charles are all kind of floating around in the background, but we're not seeing an awful lot of them. And it looks as though Buckingham Palace has been closed in London, but we'll come on to Buckingham Palace in a minute. So could CANZUK be the multinational alliance we need to tackle China? China, again, we mentioned China. Well, that's strange, actually, because China seem to be leaning or seem to have got their tentacles in Australia and New Zealand and Canada quite substantially. And I know that we've lost Huawei or have meant to be, but even so, you've got to think, well, China have got their tentacles in a lot of countries. This is my little mind map. Are we running out of time, Brian, or are we all right for time?
We've got a few more minutes.
We've got a few more minutes. I'm going to whip through. This is my little mind map, which basically will tell you the 5 tentacles that China seem to be putting into each country. And that's artificial intelligence, that's blockchain, Internet of Things, 3D printing, and there's one more on my piece of paper. Blockchain, the Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, augmented and virtual reality, and 3D printing. And they all seem to have tentacled into the UK and lots of other countries. So how does social credits work? Well, if you're a good citizen and you have the test and you take the vax and you don't diss the government and you do everything that you're meant to, you'll get social credits and you'll be a good citizen and you'll be rewarded for it. But if you don't wear a mask and you don't want to take the test and you don't want the vaccine and you have got something to say about the government, then you'll be naughty and you'll be seen as not a good citizen. So the chart on the right, just very, very briefly, just to explain that that's what the Brits, that's where the Brits, that's just somebody has put that up to say this is a survey that we did in the UK and this is how the Brits would behave. Do you need or even want to be smart to live on planet Earth? Smart governance, smart building, smart health, smart mobility, you've already seen examples of it. Two-way communication, information receiving, smart clothes, really? You've got to remember that all the data that you get, like your pulse and how fit you are and how many calories you've eaten, that's fine, you're getting that information, but your body is also putting out that information. So that information's going to a cloud somewhere, so who are you sharing it with? You want or need this, did anybody ask you? Did anybody ask you if you needed a smart clothes folding machine or a smart bed or a smart closet that's listening to you? Or have you already got one of these? Have you got a smart TV, a smart car, or is that little smart meter in the back of your cupboard listening and doing things that maybe it shouldn't know? This is all for the future. You don't need to worry because in China, when you're outside, the police wear these special helmets and there's nowhere to hide because they can see who you are, your ID, how hot you are, whether you're well, whether you're smiling, all sorts of things. So there's really nowhere to hide. And then there's blockchain, very, very briefly, because I know we're running out of time and there's so many slides to skip through. So the first stop was Bitcoin, and you've all heard of Bitcoin. That was the start of blockchain. And then we're now coming on to Ethereum, which is the next stage of blockchain, to eventually end up in neurochain, again, the brain, neurochain. They want to get into our brains. The minute blockchain starts is everything becomes transparent. So your right to buy will disappear unless you're paid in on Ethereum in Bitcoin. You won't be able to buy from a supermarket. You won't be able to go to the doctors. You won't be able to access your medications. And any web page that you go onto, anything that you buy will go onto your block. And you can't get off of it. And blockchain, chain, block, I'll let you do some more research into it, but the NHS and the UK government are using blockchain now. And United Nations buildings are completely deserted. Flags down, empty. Well, where are they? They're meant to be helping the planet, but they've all gone. And do you know that the United Nations has a sister organisation called UNITAR, and they're in Geneva, and we've been talking about Switzerland, and a number of the other speakers have been talking about Switzerland. So UNITAR are Geneva-based, and apparently they're meant to be shaping peace. So Luis Gallegos is the ambassador, and he's the chair of the board of trustees. So who is he? Well, he says a few things, but who is he? Who is this man? Well, we don't know, because when I went onto Wiki just to look at the references, all the references were gone. They were taken down, so there was nothing that I could research further. Then when I went to look on a main website, on a search engine, I found that US expels Ecuadorian ambassador, which mentions him, but error code can't find it. So it's all been censored and ghosted. These are just two examples of the courses that UNITAR offer this month in November. And you have to ask yourself, what are they talking about when they're talking about the rule of law and then diplomacy? So all of these are going on as I'm standing here talking to you now. So they are still working. 3 minutes. Here's an advert.
Hospitals are facing
a potential UK breakthrough in the search for a global vaccine. Let's take this off.
Now that it's over, we are seeing funds redirected to fight other diseases.
Treatment that allows a baby to see for the first time.
Recovery rates skyrocket, revolutionising the health industry. Well, in 10 years it's been.
People across the UK are working to make this future of health a reality for everyone.
So that was an advert that was on mainstream media just last week. And if you go back over it through the presentation, if you just look at that video again or look at it on YouTube, you can see that they're anticipating malaria in 2024, a cure to blindness in 2026, and a cure to cancer using nanodust by 2028 or 2029. And this is all headed up by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation in cahoots with the London School of Tropical Medicine, UNICEF, Save the Children, and it's .co.uk. So this is happening here in this country. And that's what's to come, a decade of health. Please do go back and look at that advert. So who runs who? I stole this slide from one of the speakers of AV11, so thank you very much, whoever it was. But just to tell you that the person that you see at WHO is not a medical doctor, and he seems to have some very strange affiliations with Ethiopian terrorist organisations. Is this fiction? Bond. How strange that yesterday Sean Connery died on Halloween. So From Russia with Love, do look at the words of the lyrics when you get the chance to. Skyfall. And what's Skyfall? Skyfall is the new Russian nuclear missile that kind of cruises around Earth for however long until it's needed. Nobody's ever seen anything like it before in their lives before. So it just seems strange that we've got Skyfall and we've got From Russia with Love, and now we've got a missile. And then the latest Bond film, No Time to Die, has been rescheduled for spring. So I find that a little bit strange. And then when you put in 007 and UK government, you get that. So actually, are the UK government modelling their plan on Bond? Because that document clearly says Government Functional Standard, Government Security 007. 1 minute, I've got 1 minute. So James Bond, he never visited Australia or Antarctica. But I'd like to show you a little about Antarctica. Hoodwink Island. The battle's on for Antarctica. There's stuff going on in Antarctica that we don't know about, but it's this massive piece of real estate, huge piece of real estate, and it's going begging, and everybody wants it, and everyone's heading for it. Here are a few of the islands. We've got Trump Island, Blair Island, Johnson Island, Pyramid Island, Dome Islands, Hoodwink Island, Deception Island. I'll let you make up your mind about Antarctica. And the Ark of Gabriel. I wish I had longer and then I could tell you a bit more about it. But has the Ark of Gabriel been moved to Antarctica? And the plasma emissions, when it was discovered, that goes back to David's presentation. So do look into that further, Antarctica. And no rats live on Antarctica. Metallica were the first band ever to play 5 continents, and they played Creeping Death, Master of Puppets, and Welcome Home Sanitarium. Says it all, really. And there are 7 churches on Antarctica, one of which, that one there is the Russian Orthodox Church. And look, Serco are everywhere, off the coast of Australia with a great big icebreaker. Now, why would they want a great big icebreaker? Can I go to my last slide, Brian? Last slide. So could you help me, Matthew? Take me to, how do I scroll through to my last slide? Matthew will take me to the last slide, which I think is very poignant. And thank you to Ian for pointing me in this direction. And I hope you watched the film. Rick Mail, 1 by 1. This is a trailer. And Matthew's trying to get it up for me. Do you want to press the button? Have I just messed it up?
No, I messed it up.
Oh, I didn't mess it up this time. I normally do. There are a few slides we weren't able to get through. There were a lot. There's so much going on and so much to say. Don't even know where to start. So I hope I've put you in a position to be able to research more yourself, because these are really difficult times. But we need to be happy. We need to smile. Fear is the devil's tool. Fear is no good for anybody. I'm a Christian. And I've got God on my side, and I know that I'm going to be fine. So we need to keep the happiness up. Matthew's still trying to find that video. Maybe we won't make it, Brian. What do you think?
Well, I think I'm just going to come on camera, if I may. So
yes, please
do.
This
way a little bit with you.
I'll stay there.
Shot. We've got lots of things happening, but I thought while the techno side is being done, let's have a look at some of the...
Oh, here we are.
Matthew's
done it.
We found it. Yeah. Okay, right. I'll just let
you
deal
with
this one.
Just this one slide.
The whole universe holds its breath in anticipation when a person reaches a crossroads, waiting to see what they decide. And it doesn't breathe out until they choose their path.
There's no going back from this, dear.
Going to the end.
Everything will change for you once you know.
Tell me.
You're a policeman,
Police officer.
Why do you work?
Why do I work? To earn money? To live?
Well, that's where you're wrong. You don't need money to live.
Of course you do.
I can almost imagine us being frog marched away from our homes in a martial law kind of way. No one bats an eyelid.
We live in fear, and we're told to buy things that we don't need with money that we don't have.
Slow down. I don't know half of what you just said.
Oh, that's a lot to think about, Dion. That's what you got to do. Just take the time to think about it.
If a picture says 1,000 words, then our eyes can see 1,000 lies. See it to believe it.
There you go, Brian.
Okay.
You can stop me now.
That's good.
And thank you to everybody, and thank you dearly to Ian for pointing me in that direction for 1-to-1. I do hope you get to see the film.
Step forward a little bit, otherwise we will be different sizes and we will confuse people. Brilliant presentation, Debbie, thank you very much. It is just amazing how all of the different speakers that we've got today are bringing parts of the jigsaw puzzle together. You can come in from different subjects and follow a different path through, but we seem to be always coming back to the fact somebody's got a control agenda for the world, and I think it's becoming a bit obvious. Now, we have got some emails that have come in, so I can do this live. This one says, how can a vaccine work against a virus that mutates every year? Okay for measles or similar, question mark.
I think that's an excellent question, and I completely agree. How can a vaccine, if it's mutating all the time, then it's changing all the time, and that means the vaccine's got to change all the time. But why would we need a vaccine for something that 99% of people get better from?
Yep.
So that would be my answer to that.
Okay, and we've got here, if the COVID virus, if COVID is in the sewage and there for testing, is it also in the water supply? If so, what's the point of lockdown?
I think that's also a brilliant question. I can't give you any definitive answer that it's in the water supply, but if it's in the sewage and the sewage pipes are very clean, very close to the clean water supplies under the road, and this country's pretty filthy, and I know a bit about water, so I'd say it's a possibility.
Okay, and this one is very good. It says, hello, Debbie. Here is CDC document stating that the COVID-19 virus does not exist. The virus cannot be purified and isolated as per Koch's postulates. The virus is a fraud. It's on page 39, and that's a www.fda.gov document, so you can have a look at that.
I completely agree. And some people don't even say, some people say that COVID isn't even a virus; it's an exosome, which is a completely different presentation.
Okay, you've obviously done something because these things are stacking up here. So let's just do a couple more.
Not too many of them bad.
Dear Debbie, I'm currently reading a very interesting book named Virus Mania by Torsten Engelbrecht and Klaus Conline, MD. It proposes that polio, HIV and several other diseases may have causes other than viral infection. In the specific diseases mentioned above, polio is attributed to the poisoning by heavy metals or pesticides such as DDT, and HIV to the destruction of the immune system by drug abuse and malnutrition. I'm only up to page 173 of 577, but it's a page turner. So
I would say, could everybody just have a look at acute flaccid paralysis? It has been in this country before, and we are set to see it again. And the CDC have said that they expect cases of acute flaccid paralysis in children to rise significantly any time from now. And it's kind of a sister to polio, but it's children that they become paralysed almost overnight. It's very, very frightening. So do a bit of research on acute flaccid paralysis.
Okay, and this one says, thank you, Debbie, for a comprehensive overview of how our health service is being manipulated. As a nurse, do you think that doctors and nurses know what's going on and how they're being manipulated? As frontline staff, will they accept a vaccine?
From my experience, the doctors that I've spoken to are confused. Most of them are confused. Many of them are young doctors, so they're junior doctors, and they're basically doing what they're being told to do. Will frontline staff take the vax? The ones that I've spoken to, no.
Okay, brilliant. And this one is a bit of a plea. Dear Debbie, I'm a mum, I'm a granny, I'm a trained nurse. Some things don't look right. I love you. You're a natural speaker. Keep doing it. So this is very good. But this lady's lost sound. Now, we know the sound of this has been going out quite happily, so I think that's going to be a problem with your local connection. Unfortunately, one more. Hi, Debbie. Calcification of organs and blood vessels is an effect of deficiency of vitamin K2, which used to be present in natural foods such as grass-fed meat, fermented foods, etc., but is virtually absent from corn-fed animal products and processed foods.
Yeah, I'd agree with all of that. And I think, you know, when we're the World Economic Forum, you might be interested, or is it WHO? It's either WEF or WHO. They brought out a diet for all of you. So they're telling you what you can eat and what you can't eat. So maybe we just have to follow them.
Okay, that's excellent. So I'm going to say thank you very much.
Thank you.
I'm going to say to you, can we do a demonstration live on stage of the counter to social distancing?
Oh yes, let's go. Yeah.
There we are.
And that makes us happy and makes us smile, which is positive.
Yeah, it was amazing, wasn't it? We started smiling there. So there you are. You've got 10 seconds of how to completely rubbish social distancing.
No fear. It takes away fear. Smile. Thank you.
Just stay there for a moment while we end.
Okay.
Yes, we do this. So I'm going to say thank you very much. As usual, I've run over time a bit, but you've now got most of half an hour break until 5 o'clock, when we've got Gary Fraun, and Gary's going to be giving us that Noah was a conspiracy theorist until it started to rain. And Gary's going to be talking more about language and the deliberate use of corruption in language. I think that's going to be really fascinating. So have a break, relax, have a comfort visit, and we'll see you at 5 o'clock.